morning, good afternoon, good evening. Zimbabwe is a failed state. That I can never tire of saying. Because it is true, and most important of all, because millions of ordinary Zimbabweans are paying the ultimate price for it. They are living in abject poverty. And unless we can do something to get out of this mess, they are doomed. Indeed, many lives have been completely ruined. Think of somebody who has gone through this last 10 years of what they thought was education, only to realize that it's been a waste of time. What do I mean by that? Well, in Zimbabwe, the education system, particularly in the rural areas, has completely collapsed. It is quite common to find when grade 7 results come out, Form 2 results, Form 4 results, and Form 6 results come out in the rural schools. The pass rate is as low as 3% or less. 3% or less. What has made the situation worse, of course, is that the 97% who have failed their grade 7 exam are encouraged to go on to the next level. What is the point? End of the 2 years, they write their Form 2, the pass rate is another 3%. They're still encouraged to go on to the next level, and so on and so forth. And at the end of the 11 years, Form 4 or upper 6, they come out with nothing. What kind of citizens are those people going to be in this age of technology? They can hardly read and write their own names. How are they going to cope in this digital and very competitive world? They have no chance. They will leave school. Some of them will leave school with A-level, O-level, even university qualifications, but just a piece of paper that is absolutely worthless. What kind of parents would they make? What kind of citizens would they make? That is what I'm talking about. Corruption has become rampant in Zimbabwe. And here is a report by Dug Up on one of the recent corruption cases. I'll just play a snippet of it.
So here's what kicked things off. A financial intelligence report, one of those no-nonsense types. It was sent to Zimbabwe's Financial Intelligence Unit. The message in that report was loud and clear. It was basically the South Africans saying to the Zimbabwean authorities, hey, there's something fishy going on with the South African company called Renform CC and a guy called Wicknell Chivhayo. The purpose of that report was to alert the Zimbabwean authorities to possible acts of money laundering and other financial crimes. The suspects were that entity named Renform CC, whose registration number is 1992001-051/23. I hope I got that right. And the subject matter was none other than Wicknell Munoda Ani Chivhayo. We have his passport numbers, but we won't share them for data protection purposes. So, when did this all start? Well, it all started when Daily Maverick, the South African publication Daily Maverick, I've worked for them before, I've worked with them. They dropped an article exposing Renform's alleged role in 570 million corruption scandal involving Zimbabwe's election materials. Leaked documents that Daily Maverick probably saw, they showed wildly inflated prices, mysterious payments, and a curious character by the name of Wicknell Chivhayo, who, it was alleged, had paid off government officials with proceeds from that particular deal with Renform. The report actually includes this line, in quotes, if I get it correctly. Extensive bank statement analysis revealed that a company linked to Wicknell Chivhayo received over 570 million rand from Renform, money that came from Zimbabwe's Ministry of Finance and Economic Development. And with that, we've got ourselves a financial thriller, if you like numbers and if you like maths, but we'll also keep it short in summary for you. Here's where things start to look like a budget horror film, except that the budget was 1.1 billion rand, and it's our horror. Basically, between April 5, 2023 and May 16, 2024, Zimbabwe's finance ministry paid 1.167 billion to Renform CC, a South African company, a South African printing company that somehow ended up supplying everything from ballot papers to biometric kits for Zimbabwe's 2023 election. Roughly 800 million of that money, or from that 1.1 billion, once it got to Renform, boom, it went straight to companies that are owned by Chivhayo. We're talking of Intratech Holdings, we're talking of Dolintel Trading Enterprise. That's right.
Until today, there were only two ways to get ahead. You either spend more time or work faster. Now, thanks to AI, there's a third. Most people...
Basically, Renform gets this 1.1 billion from the Zimbabwean government, and in no time, it's zipping out of the back door straight to Wicknell Chivhayo linked businesses. Imagine a bank account that's basically a trampoline for millions and millions of rands. That's precisely how this happened. Now, you might ask yourself, how did Renform even get that gig? How is Zimbabwe paying Renform that much amount of money? Well, in simple terms, ZEC, the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, they handpicked Renform. There was no tender, there was no competition, no problem, straight up 1.1 billion for you, sort out our elections. And we didn't know about all of this actually until Chivhayo fell out with his business partners, Mike Chimombe and...
I will stop it there. I think the point here is the level of corruption in Zimbabwe has been talked about several times, and yet nothing is done about it. In this particular story, as the gentleman explains, you can get the video and listen to it in full for yourself if you just Google the title that I showed you at the bottom there. The incident was reported to Zimbabwe's anti-corruption unit, ZAA, among other authorities, and nothing was done about it, which has been at the heart of our problem. Why is it that Nothing is done about these things. And the gentleman involved in this particular case, Chivhayo, is well known in Zimbabwe for his lavish lifestyle. He is the one individual who has got a fleet of really expensive cars. And he is not ashamed to show them off. And he's in the habit of giving these expensive cars as gifts to whoever he chooses. This is in a country where I was talking earlier on, whose education services has all but collapsed. Health, the same thing. All because of decades of being deprived of adequate financial help from government. The same government that is bankrolling ZEC's corrupt activities. Why is it a contract worth so much, 1.1 billion rand, was awarded to somebody with no public tender? Why? I think the answer is very simple and very clear. This is at the heart of why Zimbabwe is a failed state. It doesn't help us when we're looking at a situation here where these things happen year in and year out, and nothing is done about it. Nothing. One of the problems of corruption like this is that the nation pays dearly for it. And I think these are the three main ways Zimbabwe is paying dearly for corruption. The first one is the price the nation is paying when all that wealth is being stolen away instead of being used for education, healthcare, and so forth. It's now being taken away to finance all this expensive, luxurious lifestyle by the corrupt few. There's the immediate financial loss there. But also, there is the loss of the opportunity lost. For instance, if the money had been used to give quality education to some of these students, particularly in the rural areas, they would contribute over their lifetime to the good of the nation. Instead, we are churning out these individuals who, for no fault of their own, they come out at the end of the Form 2, Form 4, Form 6, even university, with a certificate just to show that they were at that school or university or college. But when they have learned very little of value to the nation. I can speak that from my own first-hand experience. At one time, I interviewed individuals who claimed they had O-level mathematics, O-level maths, and English we had asked for. And you look at their certificate, okay, it wasn't an A pass. Some of them had B's and C's and so forth. All of them, at least in the English and maths, they passed. And yet when you ask somebody who has done O-level English, O-level, what is a verb? They didn't know. And when you ask somebody who has said he had done A-level, in this particular case, A, not O, A-level maths, what is Pythagoras' theorem? They didn't know. This is amazing. So they've gone through all those years of formal education, and at the end of the day, they really had learned nothing. And this is what I say, that's the lost opportunity. If that money had been invested in giving these people quality education, think of the contribution they would make to the nation's well-being over their lifetime. The second cost to the nation is the long term. Whether we like to admit it or not, corruption has been allowed to spread and grow in Zimbabwe society. It has permeated into every segment of the society. Now it is so powerful that the corrupt are very rich and they are calling all the shots. It is no exaggeration to say ZEC, the police, the army, the CIO, all the key players in our society are in the deep pockets of the ruling elite and their mafia gangster members. They have got the money. They bribe these people. And in the case of Zimbabwe, it's no longer a shame to be bribed. In 2023, judges were given 400,000 US dollars housing loan. Everybody, of course, knew this was a bribe. The judges themselves knew it was a bribe. A bribe for what? Well, the judges were going to preside over the electoral process. For one thing, they were going to be the ones presiding over the nomination courts. Not even one of those judges worth his salt can deny that they didn't know that Zimbabwe's voters' roll was in a mess. The law is very clear. There should be a verified voters' roll at least one calendar month before nomination day. They know that the voters' roll that was being used had not been verified. And it's annoying, to say the least, that the SADC election observer team noted things like that. And hence, in their report, they talk of the Zimbabwe electoral process failed to meet the Constitution of Zimbabwe and the Electoral Act. And yet, our own judges failed to see those flaws. How is that possible? Well, a 400,000 US dollars housing loan, once you've been paid it, you can afford to have a blind spot. You don't see what is even there before your own eyes. The SEC itself, of course, is headed by a lady who was herself a judge at one point. And as we can hear from this story, the SEC officials were involved. And no doubt, she would have been one of those who benefited from the whole scheme. 1.1 billion rand was paid. And 800 million of it was to pay the various individuals involved in the deal. So in other words, only about 300 million was used to pay whoever supplied the material, and it was all shipped and so forth. The other aspect of it is, of course, those elections, as the report there from the SADC election observer team noted, the election process was flawed. Why was this particular supply picked without going to public tender? Could it be that part of the deal was to help the SEC rig the election? That could be asked to supply more ballot papers, for instance, than was required. This is part and parcel of why Zimbabwe is a failed state. We have been stuck with a corrupt, incompetent, and tyrannical ruling party, ZANU-PF. And one of the reasons why, in fact, the number one reason why we have been stuck is that ZANU-PF has been able to rig elections and get away with it. And one of the reasons why they've been able to do that is they've been able to bribe the key players like in SEC, the police, the judiciary, and in the opposition. There is no doubt that Zimbabwe's MDC-CCC leaders have been ZANU-PF Team B in all but name, playing for Team A to win and for Team A to have legitimacy. The third reason, the third price that the nation has paid by allowing corruption to continue all these years is that the country's reputation is mud. Zimbabwe has become the textbook case of a corrupt and failed state. And there's a heavy price to be paid. During the COVID period, whilst other nations in the region with similar level of poverty got assistance from the UN, the various bodies of the UN, Zimbabwe was singled out and left out for the simple reason that in the past, those charitable donors have given out money or materials as aid, only for the money and materials to be looted. You can't blame somebody, the donors, to be reluctant to help a country like that. We, the people of Zimbabwe, have allowed corruption to go unchecked for 45 years and counting. And we are paying dearly for it. We, the people. Mnangagwa and his friends were benefiting from it. Well, admittedly, of course, they are not happy that their name, their corrupt activities is being reported the world over. But nonetheless, you cannot also deny that they are pleased with their fat bank accounts and their massive wealth that they have accumulated through their corrupt activities. They have mansions in Zimbabwe and outside Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe's former First Lady, Grace Mugabe, is hardly ever in Zimbabwe. She's either in Dubai or somewhere in the Far East. When she was First Lady, she amassed a lot of wealth, and she's living off that fat now. That is the reality. We are talking right now, millions of Zimbabweans are sitting in the dark because there's no electricity. There's no clean running water in the houses. The roads have got potholes. The country is a failed state. People of Zimbabwe have to wake up to that reality and do something about it. If you don't, you'll suffer for it. It is that simple. Particularly now, when the world is facing some very serious challenges caused by, for instance, climate change. If there was to be a major disaster in Zimbabwe tomorrow, the people of Zimbabwe should not be surprised that the world will turn a blind eye to. Because Zimbabwe has the potential to do a lot better than we have done so far. Because we have allowed corruption to grow and spread to the level it has. R1.1 billion. Zek, the police in Zimbabwe, the various authorities in Zimbabwe have heard about it, even if they haven't. There is the report. What the hell are they going to do about it? If Zimbabweans didn't hear about this corruption, now you've heard about it. And you must be the ones at the forefront demanding that ZANU-PF, this ZANU-PF regime, addresses those problems. In other countries where the leaders are accountable to the people, many heads will roll. And why not Zimbabwe? Why is corruption allowed to happen in Zimbabwe and nothing is done about it? How long are we going to allow this madness to continue? The longer we allow it to continue, the longer we ourselves have got to realize that we ultimately pay the price for it. That is the truth. Food for thought. Thank you very much, those of you who were able to listen and join in. Have a good night.